Leah Whatley was recently elected second vice chair of the Charleston County Republican Party. In this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I speak exclusively with her one-on-one. Leah, it is so good to see you.
Quintin, it's great to see you too.
I appreciate this.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Anytime. So let me talk about the obvious. Obviously, you were elected just recently as second first vice chair for the Charleston County Republican Party. When you were voted as that, where did your mind go to?
I was shocked because I had no intention of actually running for that position. Someone submitted my name.
Wow.
And I said, well, sure, let's do it. So I was surprised that I was elected, but very grateful for the opportunity and just taken back and blessed by the vote of confidence that people put in me.
And I know that, when we were talking off camera, you have a list of things that you want to get accomplished as the second first vice chair for Charleston County Republican Party.
Yes, I would very much like to reach out to people who have not normally been engaged in the political process. We look at social media and we see everybody's got an opinion, yet most of these people are sitting back and not doing anything. They're not engaged, they're not being constructive. A lot of them are just being critical. So let's put your money where your mouth is and let's get you involved and let's get you educated about the process and what really goes on. Let's get you educated about the Republican platform and the Republican creed. And, let's work together on holding our elected officials accountable to that platform. And at the same time, the Republican Party is the party of liberty and freedom. It's the Republican Party that fought for women's rights to vote. It's the Republican Party that fought against slavery. And if people believe that the Republican Party has strayed from that, well, we need to make sure that everybody sees we are doing it the right way and that we're leading by example.
Speaking of elected officials, let me talk to you about President Donald Trump. The following headline from the Washington Times says this, quote, Trump becomes first president to pray at Western Wall. When you hear that, what sticks out to you?
What sticks out to me, I'm going to draw from my own personal experience.
Okay.
I've visited that wall multiple times. And when you touch that wall and you pray at that wall, and I've touched it and I've interceded for other people, and he has come out with a statement that when he touched the wall and he prayed, he just this morning he had a live conference, and he made a statement that he was praying and asking God for wisdom. One thing I absolutely believe right now for any of our elected officials is they need great wisdom from above, just like George Washington sought for wisdom. We need wisdom to navigate the days that are ahead. So what stands out to me is the personal experience of, experiencing what happens at that wall and that spirit of intercession that comes over you when you touch that wall and you begin to pray. All of the prayers that have been poured out there, all of the tears that have been poured out there, and the significance that that wall holds to the Jewish people. When you enter into the Kotel, there's a sign. If you've checked my Facebook, you should see that in my photo library.
Right.
There's a sign that says you're entering into the most holy place in Judaism. And it is expected that you honor the divine presence that rests here. The guards are there to make sure that people aren't being tourists in that place. That place is dedicated to prayer. It is set aside as holy. So when I see him, I in fact posted prior to his visit to the wall, I want to see him touch the wall. I want to see him touch the wall. I posted on his page when he talked about going to Israel, I want to see you touch the wall. So when he touched the wall, and not just touched the wall, but he touched the wall and prayed, very significant to me.
And as you know, before Israel was Saudi Arabia. When you look back at his speech that is, what plays in your mind?
His speech in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that prior to, after 9/11, George Bush was very clear at what we were war against, terrorism. So President Obama did that. And since then, we've gone from no terrorist attacks throughout Europe and America to multiple attacks throughout Europe and even in America. They're now commonplace in Europe. So I think that it's very important that we define exactly what it is that we're at war against. We're not at war against every single person in the Muslim world, but we are at war against an ideology that drives hatred and celebrates death. I have stood at a protest on Meeting Street across from the Visitor Center when supporters of Hamas was protesting Israel. I, of course, stood on the side of Israel with the Jews. I myself, along with Stuart Kaufman, heard a man that supports Hamas chanting, "We love death." I heard him with my own ears. It's one thing when you read these things, it's easy to say, well, that's not true. But I heard it with my own ears. We love death. And one of the things that I appreciate from Donald Trump's speech is that he called that out. And he identified exactly what it is that we're at war with. And he challenged the entire Muslim world to identify them and drive them out. It's very important. It's the only way we're going to win is if we all come together, identify the enemy, and we all don't give evil a place to hide.
News coverage. As you know, there's been a lot of debate over that as far as news media covering the Trump administration. What letter grade would you give the media right now?
Well, I've had issues with the media since before President Trump. I grew up with a father who was a public official,
right.
And I know that the media gets it wrong. And I know that the media will take your words and twist your words and skew your words to fit into a narrative. Even with the Mother Emanuel killing, I was standing out there with a black gentleman that I had never met before. In fact, I ended up having him walk me to my car because of the outsiders that started to come in after the leadership left. The atmosphere completely shifted. But a journalist came in from California and immediately started trying to get us to answer in a way that fit into a narrative that they were trying to push. And me and him both, we were both like, we looked at each other and we were like, yeah, no, we're not going for that. So I agree with Donald Trump on fake news.
Okay.
It's absolutely true. But here's my thing. I learned from somebody that worked with the CIA. You don't look at just one news outlet. I watch news outlets from around the world.
Okay.
And it gives you a much clearer picture. And I know from my law enforcement training, people's memories are not very good. And so when you come onto the scene, you sequester the witnesses. You get statements from all the witnesses. Then you bring all the statements together and you look at them, and it'll give you a much clearer idea of what's really going on. You know, whether I watch Sky News, which is from the UK, or Al Jazeera, which is from the Muslim world, or whether I watch the American news, I watch them all.
Let me turn you to May 15th. You posted the following on Facebook, and this is quote, "What a great day. Took a road trip to Rock Hill with a couple of awesome ladies and got to meet up with my wonderful cruise crew folks. It was like stepping back in time to one of the best experiences of my life, working in the cruise campaign. Lots of smiles and laughs and reconnecting. So good. I've heard both candidates and got to speak to Ralph Norman today privately. I'm supporting Norman for the 5th District. I agree with Ted Cruz on this one. It's vital to make sure we have a strong conservative voice in the 5th District. As you know, just recently Ralph Norman won that particular nomination. Well, you know, obviously
he won the
primary that is. Where are you emotionally with that, knowing that you just met with him and you're supporting him?
Well, I feel that he is going to be the stronger conservative voice. And I'm not knocking any of the candidates that were involved. A lot of great candidates were involved. He's the one that got the primary. So now it's going to come down to Ralph Norman and the Democrat that he runs against. I'm absolutely 100% behind Ralph Norman as the conservative voice. I believe, I'm a conservative and I'm not going to make any apologies for it. I believe that he will fight for the Bill of Rights. He will be the strongest voice to fight for the Bill of Rights. He will be the strongest conservative voice. And we all know the ideology between conservatism and, I hesitate to say liberalism because I have liberal friends that aren't necessarily progressive, but the progressive movement. So between a conservative and a progressive, yeah, I'm definitely going to side with the conservative, and my feeling is I certainly hope that he wins.
Let me stay in Columbia because obviously there was a huge debate over the gas tax increase, which was actually voted by both the House and Senate. When you look at really the General Assembly from January 11th to just recently when it ended, what sticks out in your mind?
In terms of the gas tax?
Yes, and other issues too, if you want to talk about that.
Well, so as far as the gas tax goes, we have been fighting this now for 3 years. So our representatives were telling us that we had to do this because this is the only way to fix our roads. I find it curious that the roads have needed to be fixed for probably 20 years now, but now all of a sudden they've got to increase taxes. And as a conservative, I'm always going to fight tax increases. So especially if I'm not real sure why we need to do it. So they've said that they've got to increase it this much because that's the only way that our roads are going to get repaired, even though they haven't been maintained all along. And I'm on the record to say that I feel that there's been some mismanagement going on, and that's really what's going on. There's no accountability, so they're not making they're not answering for why it hasn't been taken care of in the past. So we've got the 4th largest road system in America, according to, if you go and look at the truckers' information. And I heard Tommy Pope say that they build new roads in order to trigger federal money. So I want to know where the money has gone. I want accountability. I want DOT reform, especially in light of the investigation that's going on. So you tell us that you need to increase because that's the only way you're going to, but then I learned that only a third of the gas tax money is going to go towards actually fixing the roads, and the rest of it's going to go to the general fund for other things. And then we discovered at the 11th hour they stuck college tuition in there. Explain that to me. You said you needed to increase our taxes because that's the only way to fix our roads, but then I see there's all this other movement for the money towards other things. But this has been our issue all along. What have you been doing with our money?
And let me talk to you about the other issues. When you look at the other issues in the General Assembly, when you talk about the permitless carry bill and the Charleston loophole, what sticks out to you with those things?
You're talking about the constitutional carry.
Right.
So here's how I feel about constitutional carry. I'm okay with, especially having been in a capacity as a law enforcement officer, I'm a little bit more comfortable with somebody that's carrying open versus somebody who has it concealed. At least I know who I'm dealing with. And in terms of an individual, if I were evil and I was looking for people to prey on, I'm not going to go for somebody who is openly carrying. I'm going to do like other criminals do, and I'm going to target somebody who looks weak and can't defend themselves. I'm going to go for the easier target. So at the same time, though, I'm also a big advocate for proper training. In the discussions that I've had with open carry is you've got people who are passionate about their right to carry, and the government not dictating because the Second Amendment says it should not be infringed upon. Right. So their position is that it's being infringed on. We should be able to do what we want in terms of being able to protect ourselves. I don't disagree with that. However, you've got a lot of people that don't take personal responsibility these days. So I'm a big proponent and big advocate for, if you're not going to take up personal responsibility, then you need some guidelines. And I've tried to reason with some of the open carry people and say, this bill would be passed much faster if you would also agree to personal responsibility in training. I think that would eliminate a lot of accidental shootings and a lot of accidental deaths. If you had a good solid training program. I have spoken with the FOP about it, and they agree. There needs to be some training involved.
Okay. And let me turn you to really a 2-year anniversary that we're coming upon here in probably 2 weeks. And you said the following quote, and after you posted a cover photo, you said this quote, remembering Senator Pinckney, who was murdered in cold blood by Dylan Roof, who was filled with hatred. What do you remember most about Senator Pinckney in your mind?
I've learned of Senator Pinckney in the light of all of this. So when I remember him, I remember how he needlessly was murdered. How a man could sit there in fellowship with them for an hour and then just gun them down. And then turn around and say, I almost didn't do it because you were so kind to me. And I think about what kind of heart could possibly do something like that to other people. I learned that Senator Pinckney, from even early in his early adulthood, stood out among his peers as somebody very learned and very up to speed on current events around him. And not only that, he possessed an ability to articulate his thoughts about the current events that are around him. I look at him as somebody who was a great role model to his community about what you could achieve. So those are the things that I think of, and I think about his family and what his family must be going through, and how hard it's got to be for them to overcome the grief. And I've always been in a relationship with the Black community.
Okay.
I think that's one thing that's unique about our community. We may go about our separate lives, but we don't turn our backs on one another. And when tragedy happens, we do in fact come together.
Speaking of families, let me turn you to this. 65 officers were killed in the line of duty serving the people of South Carolina. As a law enforcement, official, how does that make you feel? Where's your heart with that?
Well, the 65 officers that we had the memorial for on May 10th at Park Circle, that was specifically 65 in the Tri-County area. The number's higher for the state. And in the last 3 to 4 years, actually in the last couple of years, that number has skyrocketed as there has seemed to be a war on cops that has emerged. It saddens my heart. These are the people who don't go into it for the money. And they, even in the face of persecution, they still go to work and they still perform their duties to the best of their ability. I think that for the first time in 8 years, they now have a Department of Justice that does back them. Sheriff Cannon was recently at the first Monday meeting,
Right.
and he stated that out of a survey, the officers state that it isn't that they feel that they have a lack of training, and it isn't that they feel that they lack proper judgment in the execution of their duties, that it's the lack of support, it's the lack of backing, that if they do execute their duties, they're not going to be backed up in the execution of their duties. And we're now seeing, as a result of this, trouble in recruiting new officers. That's kind of where I'm at with that.
Leah Whatley, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
No problem, Quintin. Thank you so much.
Thank you.